Good evening, everyone. Good evening. So this evening, the conservatives, the liberals, the Democrats, the Republicans, literally there's a white civil war that's occurring right before our eyes. We have the system of white supremacy imploding on itself because essentially when the system creates these law enforcement agencies, most likely the FBI, to attack black groups, black power, black enforcement, black empowering groups for our people, they use law enforcement agencies like the FBI to essentially dismantle black empowerment movements. This is very important because now the system is quaking, the system is trembling, for now they are now imploding within their own selves. Now we understand that a couple of days ago, I think it was August 12th, when the FBI, quote unquote, searched and seized documents from Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago home. Now, some people are saying raided. No, just like anything else, family, a search warrant was issued. It was stamped off and signed off by a judge and some other adjudicated law enforcement or those people in government to go inside the prior president's home and collect classified documents that he did not return in those 15 boxes that should have been with the National Archives. Now, as we say here, there's been many stories that have been going around. There's been many stories that you guys have been seeing about these documents being taken from Donald Trump's home. Now, these documents, once again, were not supposed to be at Donald Trump's home, period. These supposed to be in the National Archives. Now, everybody's trying to paint all the news agencies. When I mean all the news agencies, I mean mostly those on the left. Those most liberal news agencies are trying to paint Donald Trump in a bad light. Okay, you took classified documents from the White House, from the Capitol, that was not essentially supposed to even be in your private quarters. Wait a minute. The same thing that Hillary Clinton did. And just for you guys who are new to this channel, please subscribe, like. But first and foremost, I'm apolitical. I'm not a conservative. I'm not a liberal. I'm not a Democrat. And I'm not a Republican. But this is how the system of white supremacy essentially operates. And a lot of people would like to take out the race part of it. They would take out the race nature of it. But family, this all has to do with race. Because as we break down this video today, family, you're going to see that how when a system can no longer attack black people when they start to implode on themselves, because power will dismantle any system when two heads, when the supreme being with the dominant society essentially start to fight for power, they will implode, they will destroy, they will dismantle themselves. This is the way it occurs each and every time. So as we look at this, family, bear with me. As we look at this, we're going to point out a couple of things here. Now, first, I want to start with MTG, okay, Major Taylor Greene, and not to demean her, not to essentially point her out specifically, because this rhetoric is coming from conservatives. This rhetoric is coming from the Republican Party in general as a whole. She's just kind of being the mouthpiece of this ever since her tweet on Twitter about defund the FBI, which is basically a code word for defund law enforcement, because now you're attacking our great leader, Donald Trump, aka the MAGA crowd, or aka Trumpsters. And I really want you guys to hear how she really self-destructs herself. Now, this video is literally from last year, May of 2021, when she was speaking to Congress. Listen to this, family. I think this is very, very important that you listen to this. Fair use, fair use.
Mr. Speaker, I ask the unanimous consent to address the House for up to 5 minutes and 5 and extend my remarks.
Objection. Gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in opposition to the commission to study the events of January 6th, as well as spending $2 billion in security supplemental. The question that comes to mind is this: what about all the riots that happened during the summer of 2020 after the death of George Floyd? What about all the damage caused to federal buildings, churches, people's businesses, and innocent people that were killed, like David Dorn. This past summer, Minneapolis.
Let's stop right there. So she's pointing out and she's trying to make a comparison that Black Lives Matter and Antifa destroyed all these federal buildings and people got killed. And she's trying to compare that against the January 6th insurrection. This will kind of give you guys some groundwork, give you a foundation of what she's trying to get at. I'm just trying to cut to the chase, but I'm gonna let her finish to a certain point, and then we're gonna comment and do some commentary on that.
City officials estimate 700 buildings were damaged, burned, or destroyed, including 360 local businesses. Riots caused an estimated $55 million in damages in Minneapolis alone. BLM and Antifa established an autonomous zone in Seattle and attempted to burn government buildings in Portland. Is that not an insurrection? On one front.
So now that code word, family, that code word, she's stating that BLM and Antifa, and BLM is just a code word for black people. Black people and their supporters, meaning the white people who were actually doing all the destruction. Antifa was literally had sledgehammers sitting on curbs for things to be destroyed. And there's video clips, which I didn't prepare, but you can look at for yourself. There's video clips of non-black people dressed in all black with their face actually covered, destroying buildings. Okay, that's what she's not pointing out. Again, a lot of these things, when it comes to both parties, they are race-based. I just want to point that out.
Friday, 9/11, New York City, BLM protesters caused over 100,000 damages and 150 people were arrested. Just one Monday night in Philadelphia resulted in a crowd of 1,000 people looting stores, setting fires in the middle of the street, and 30 police officers injured. Protests in Kansas City resulted in $2.1 million in damages, mostly over the course of one weekend. Several officers were injured as well. Protests in Wichita, Kansas cost the police department about $1.5 million in overtime. Protests in Salt Lake City cost at least $100,000 in damages. Protests in Denver cost the city at least $5.5 million in damages and overtime. BLM protests in Nashville set a federal courthouse on fire. The destruction is estimated to have cost $1.2 million in damages. Again, is that an insurrection? Protesters in Portland destroyed barriers and attempted to burn down government buildings, resulting in $2.3 million in damages, including $1.6 million in damages to the courthouse downtown. In St. Louis, following the night of violence, buildings were looted, vandalized, and burned. Protesters in Louisville set the courthouse on fire and shot 2 cops, resulting in a state of emergency order being declared. Protesters in Kenosha, Wisconsin, injured. Police officers set off fireworks near the building and courthouse and set at least 2 city trucks on fire. In Guilford County, North Carolina, courthouse was broken into, set on fire, resulting in roughly $200,000 in damages. Protests in Oakland, California, resulted in a courthouse being set on fire and vandalized.
Wait for it. Family, the point with this is I really want to get to the meat and potatoes. So she's about to hit the nail in the coffin right here.
It was defunded by $150 million, and some smaller crime units were eliminated entirely. Studies show 570 protests in 220 U.S. locations.
You see how she gaslighted protests, meaning that these were just a bunch of black people and their supporters destroying government buildings, killing cops. You see how she's setting the premise? This is very dangerous, especially when you have to eat your words, especially when you have contradicted yourself. And again, this is not pointed at her per se, but this is pointed at those Trumpsters. These are pointed at the MAGA crowd, which they don't care about American Republic democracy. They do not care about it. They just care about their man. They just care about the guy they essentially call the great leader, their cult leader. This is what this is about. Because essentially, he broke the law. And the warrant that went inside of Mar-a-Lago home to seize classified documents, they're trying to say that was unprecedented, that was illegal. Let me see the warrant. They're asking for all this additional information. Now, granted, President Trump should have a copy of the warrant. I don't know if he received that yet. I haven't heard anything. But the point of this, these followers, so to speak, will like to do compare and contrast. And again, this is from last year, but look how she demonized Black people. Look how she tries to paint a picture that Black people are demonic and destructive and violent and killers. But we're going to lay out a couple of key points here. We're going to bring some receipts of how this is all flawed. This is smoke and mirrors. And again, this is how they paint a premise to demonize us.
Turned violent over the summer. Are those not insurrections? The $1+ billion in riot damage is estimated to be the most extensive in insurance history. It resulted in up to $2 billion of damages in 20 cities across the U.S., mostly concentrated in LA, Detroit, Miami, DC, and New York. Indeed, we should have a commission to study the violent BLM and Antifa mobs that have plagued American cities this past summer. And that's for the American people, who, by the way, pay the taxes that fund everything we do here. Also, we should have a security supplemental to fund all the police departments that have been defunded.
Whoa! Did you guys catch that? Did you guys catch that? That we should have a security fund to increase police funding, law enforcement funding. Let me back up a little bit here. Let's listen to this again.
All the police departments that have been defunded due to the pressure from radical, violent, and socialist groups.
Oh no, family. We got to hear this one more time. This is very important, family. This is very important. I must say so myself. We must hear this again.
Should have a security supplemental to fund all the police departments that have been defunded due to the pressure from radical, violent, and socialist groups. We should back the blue because they certainly back us. Also,
okay. See, this is when you put your foot in your mouth and you speak very unintelligently about situations that you're gaslighting based on Black injustice. First and foremost, we need to understand, family, all of those protests that motivated the entire world against governments that has been against melanated people around the world was based on George Floyd's death. That people for 8 to 9 minutes, for a police officer this is the American government and how they play each other for power. And this is how a civil war essentially occurs when two parties does not allow another party to take the reins. And now they're using Black people. They're using us to fuel this war through the rhetoric of defunding law enforcement, because defund the FBI, Black and the Blue, back in the badge, all has to do with law enforcement agencies. But now that one political party is stating that another political party was complicit in trying to overthrow the government by the figurehead, the former President Donald Trump, now there's an issue. Now, we went through this whole political feud about how the elections were essentially sabotaged by the Democrats. And now we're stating that these FBI agents went inside the home of Donald Trump in Mar-a-Lago and illegally obtained documents that were illegally stored at his home. These were classified documents that were supposed to be returned within the 15 boxes that he shouldn't have taken from the National Archives in the first place. Those 15 boxes of classified documents were supposed to go from either the White House, the Capitol, or whatever government source there he was viewing those documents inside of the National Archives. he took those documents home. I just want to raise a question. Why would you take documents home? Now, the question I do have that's very interesting is, why didn't you destroy those documents? Now, first and foremost, there was a report that they knew he took the documents. Now, destroying government documents is, of course, another federal offense. So that's why he was probably just safe keeping them there, okay? Let's just point that out, family. Now that she's put her foot in her mouth, let's move on to something that's a little more entertainment, a little more entertaining, so to speak, okay? Representative Major Taylor Greene defund the FBI almost a year later. About 14 months later, we're talking about defunding the very police, defunding the very law enforcement. You were stating that we need to make an additional security fund in order to round up these Black Lives Matter groups and these Antifa groups that were insurrections against the American government, but nothing dealing with the injustices of Black people here in America. No. Let's not talk about that. You know what? Let's point out 229 deaths and murders that occurred by hate crimes, that occurred by the police. Let's point those out. Can we go through some of these, family? Let's go through some of these. Now, I'm not going to read off every name. Some of these names you already know. But see, these are reports that don't get highlighted. Let me just go back up here very, very quickly. Full list of 229 Black people killed by police since George Floyd murder. This is the very reason that we were protesting in the first place of the injustice, discrimination, racial bias of our people. But now, just a simple seize, just a simple warrant being an issue, and they're going through documents in his home. Now, even those people that were against Black Lives Matter, that were against Antifa, which I really don't care too much about, but nonetheless, trying to have this government to recognize us as people. The reason why the term Black Lives Matter even came out is to let them know, which they already do, that we matter as well. And the protest to our protest was the term All Lives Matter. God damn it, we already know all lives matter. We're trying to let you know our lives matter, that Black lives matter. But nonetheless, I digress. Let's look at some of these names, family. And again, these occurred after George Floyd's murder, not death, murder. Okay, so here we go. We got Tony McDade. Some of these names you may not be familiar with because all of these stories did not get pushed on the headlines. Rumi Smith III, Jarvis Sullivan, Terrell Mitchell, Derek Thompson, I'm skipping around, Louis Ruffin, Philip Jackson, Michael Blue Thomas, Rashard Brooks, Kane Van Pelt, Donald Ward, Brandon Gardner, Rasheed Matthew Mormon, K.Y. Johnson, William Wade Burgess III, Paul Williams. I mean, we have 229 names of Black people being killed by Back the Badge. We have 229 of our people being murdered by race soldiers. We have 229 people being killed by Back the Blue. We have 229 people on record. This is not the total number, family. So instead of defund the police, they were talking about increase the police. Let's get more law enforcement agents on the street. Let's deputize race soldiers in counties, cities, and local municipalities. Let's be the most, which we already are, police nation in the world. We are the most police nation in the world. We have all our melanated brothers and sisters out here dying by the hands of the police. And let me tell you this, majority of these people were unarmed. They were unarmed when they're being killed. Remember the 13-year-old they've been showing for the past 2 weeks? He was running. He was in a stolen car, but he was a passenger, okay? He was a passenger. So we can kind of allude to that he may or may not knew that the car was stolen. I'll leave that up to you, family. But when they told him to stop and raise his hand, he was turning around with his hands raised. And how many times did he get shot? How many times did his brother get shot? At 13 years of age. But they're talking about Black Lives Matter, the protest that was occurring in all the major cities in the U.S. were insurrections against the government. Let me continue. I'm just going to read off a couple more names here. Let me just go down here, family. We got Walter Wallace, Maurice Parker, and I want you to look at some of these ages, okay? These ages, okay? We're looking at 26, 19. These are our sons and daughters. Frederick Cox, 18 years of age. Angelo A.J. Crome, 16 years of age. Pierce, 18. Arthur Keith, 19 years of age. Terrell Smith, 17 years of age. They're killing our sons. They're killing our daughters with impunity. Not immunity, not qualified immunity, but qualified impunity. Meaning they can get away with killing us with no punishment at all. With no punishment at all. Oh, ho, ho, ho. So I guess there are punishments. I guess there are punishment will take for instance like this, family. They're on their job. Their so-called oath is to protect and serve. Now, we can play around with the term protect because you can't protect anything because you're not in places where things need to be protected. You're recalled to action. You're like a quick reaction force. But when you get there, when someone's calling the police, whether it be a mental health issue or not, majority of these melanated brothers and sisters, these black brothers and sisters, these foundational black Americans, these U.S. freemen were unarmed. Do you guys remember the story when the brother essentially stole some dish detergent or clothes detergent out of a store? He was an elderly brother. He was running from the police. The police jumped on his back. He dropped his taser right beside him. The brother grabbed it. He said, let go of the taser. Pulled out his gun. He could have shot him in the shoulder. He could have shot him in the buttocks. He shot him in the back of the head, execution style. And some of you coons out there and some of you white supremacy out there, oh, well, he should have never sold a dish detergent. When the last time someone got killed over dish detergent? A $4 bottle of dish detergent. And you guys still think this is about politics? No, this is upholding the system of white supremacy. And now there's a white civil war that's imploding on itself because they're fighting for power. They're fighting for power. And that's the one thing that everybody's trying to forget. They're trying to take your eyes off the prize. And the only reason why the Republicans are stating that this was an illegal search and seizure of documents is because it's the election season. They're trying to gain some sort of foothold in the power that the Democrats have accumulated because 87% of black people voted for Joe Biden, which we shouldn't have. When you vote for nothing, you get nothing. And then a lot of you are like, man, you know, we got to vote because our ancestors died for this. Okay, what did our ancestors fought, bled, and died for? What do you think they actually died for? They essentially fought, bled, and died for black empowerment. They fought, bled, and died for reparations. They fought, bled, and died for justice of melanated people. Let's go down this list just a little bit more. I want to look at some of the ages here, family, like Jaquan Hayes, 18 years of age. Shaeed Robert Boyd, 21 years of age. Vincent Belmont, 18 years of age. Malik Cater Jr., 21 years of age. Tyee Webster, 18 years of age. Jordan Walton, 21 years of age. And the list continues to go on and on and on. But they would have you believe that they're treating Donald Trump wrong, that the MAGA crowd actually has a fight, and that this government is essentially doing the Trumpsters wrong or doing Donald Trump wrong, or that the American democracy is dismantling itself because of injustices by the FBI, or is it defund the police, or is it law enforcement or this illegal activity within law enforcement? Let's talk about it, family. Because let me give you some receipts here. Let's not forget that the defund police slogan became common, okay, with spirit during the George Floyd protest that started in May of 2020, okay? That's when essentially all these protests of Black people, not just in the US, but around the world, all the injustices, white supremacy. Now, this is when we dig a little bit deeper, because for quite some time, we've been noticing about the anti-hate crime bill that your buddy, that you voted for, good old Jim Crow Joe, signed into law, stating that there's been an uptick of hate crimes in the Asian community. And majority of those hate crimes were done by Black people to Asian Americans, to those of Asian descent. But we can go to DOJ, we can go to the FBI, and we can look at the actual crimes that were labeled hate crimes. And let's just kind of do a compare and contrast of the statistics that you will see here of what majority of the hate crimes and who are the people who were essentially agreed. Let's look at this, because I want to see that the FBI, I want to see law enforcement. I won't go there, but I'll go here, family. Let's look at this. So, bias motivation categories for victims of single bias incidents. Now, we see the sexual orientation at 20%, even though Joe Biden, the one that you guys signed into law, signed a LGBTQ anti-hate crime bill. Look that up as well, okay? But we understand here in America that the most hate crimes are dealing with race and ethnicity at 61.8%. Let's round it up to 62%. Majority of the hate crimes were sexual orientation being second and religion being third, okay? And they're saying here gender is only 0.7%. So the whole narrative that people are just going around banging on the doors and killing and hanging and grieving people of the LGBT community is a misnomer. It's actually incorrect. Am I stating that these things don't occur? I'm not stating that. But the numbers, the way that mass media has projected that these numbers are larger than people going out killing Black people, those with and without badges are larger. This is fraud. This is a scam that if the only thing your ass watches CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, and Fox, then you will be fooled. See, Malcolm X stated a lot of these things, how mass media will project imagery and have you to believe that your own people are the ones committing most of the crimes. And that's why I like to watch Professor Black Truth Crime Report every Friday, because he points out the degeneracy of non-Black people, how these never get painted, the picture never get painted on headline news around the world. Let's dig a little bit deeper here. Let's dig big deeper, because I want you guys to see the numbers. I want you to see what they're reporting on themselves. Now, out of 8,263 hate crimes labeled and reported, 2,871 of those anti-Black. So roughly 2,900 of the hate crimes reported were against melanated people, was against Black people in this country. While white at 869, anti-Jewish at 683, anti-gay coming in at number 4 at 673. Now it's mostly against males, and anti-Hispanic at the last at 517. Where are the Asian people? Where are those of Asian descent? But see, this is where they kind of do smoke and mirrors, family, where they had some sort of, I think it was a Korean pop group that they invited to the White House, and they were speaking about anti-hate against the Asian community. I'm not stating that people are not going out harming Asian people. I'm not stating that. But what I am stating is that they will have you to believe that black people are not getting killed simply because of their race. These are hate crimes, are they not? These are hate crimes. Let me look at what the people are stating really quickly here. I see we got Qualt Man in the room. Qualt Man said, so glad the Frankenstein is attacking them. Yes, Lord. We got Leonard Diata in the room. And they have let in 5 million illegals, and there is nothing they can do about it. Absolutely not. Now you hear the new news that Hispanics in large numbers are now turning and voting Republican. Well, thanks, Democrats. This is what you did to increase the white population, because we understand that majority of Hispanics, not all, consider themselves white. And that dates back to the 1960s when the LULAC organization was stating, oh, don't make Hispanics our own race, label us as white. And that's why on applications you see something on the terms of Hispanic white or Hispanic or white non-Hispanic. They even like to separate themselves, but Hispanics on the most part can label themselves as white. There are a lot of white Hispanics. And here's another thing, family. We see people like the Proud Boys, the leader of the Proud Boys. He's kind of like a light brown hue Hispanic gentleman, but he labeled himself as white. He labeled himself as white. I'm not stating that all Hispanics label themselves as white. I'm not saying that. Qualt Man also states that 10% of black male voters and 8% of black female voters voted for Trump. This is the highest percentage in 50 years. 65% of the black population voted. It's important to see folks are awakening. Okay? Be one to you too, brother. One more comment here. That's why they never show names and faces of the folks in Chicago supposedly shooting 200 people every weekend. But these are the hate crimes, family. These are the hate crimes. And now you see the system of white supremacy slowly imploding on itself. This is what you call dismantling of a government. And I would like to ask you guys, according to the Constitution, do we live in a democracy? Do we live in a democracy, or do we live in a republic? Now, I'm going to talk about that very quickly here. I know a lot of people uses the term, if you do not vote, you don't have a voice. That is the most unintelligent thing I ever heard in my life, because you live in a republic, but it operates as a democracy, does it not? With that being said, if a group of people, a large group, a large demographic of people give their demands, give what they want in order to obtain their vote, and you need this vote in order to become president, you need this vote in order to obtain office, then what happens when you just vote blue no matter who? What happens if you vote red, I'll rather die instead? These slogans that they use. What happens once you give your vote? Do you still have a voice? I want you to think about that, fam. I really want you to drill down in your mind. Once you vote, please tell me, what power do you have? Someone point out, once you cast your vote, once you put in your ballot, tell me what power do you have? Now, if you guys never heard Malcolm X ballot or the bullet speech, please go out and listen to his ballot or the bullet speech. This is what's occurring right now. We're living in some very interesting times in politics. We're living in the same times that black people have always lived in when it comes to race and injustice and discrimination and murders and killings, and the smoke and mirrors that both political parties show to the American people of how black people are so wicked. If we're so wicked, why is it a very small list of 229 black people being killed by the police? Why are we seeing that majority of the hate crimes are against melanated people, against black Americans? Why are we seeing this, family? Let's go a little bit deeper here. Let's just drill down just a little bit here. And they've broken this down by quarter. Okay. But I want to go down here. They're giving you the location of majority of these hate crimes, of where these mostly take place at. Okay. Then I want to come down here to point out a couple of things here. Who are the offenders of these hate crimes? White at 3,800. Then they say Black Americans or African American, and they're stating at 1,451. Against who? Against who? That's the question that you guys should be asking each other. Who they're referring to. And when it comes to these hate crimes, it's mostly individual. Business, government, other, society, and public. It's mostly individuals, okay? Let's keep going. Now, Trumpsters who record when protesters dare chant Black Lives Matter after police killings of George Floyd are borrowing one of their lines. Uh-oh, here we go. Here we go, family. Defund the FBI read the t-shirt that MTG began hawking after law enforcement officers retrieved boxes of alleged top secret documents for former President Donald Trump home in Florida. Do you believe this bullshit? So after they search somebody's home, okay, not like Breonna Taylor where they unlawfully shot through the window, unlawfully was going to do a no-knock warrant, so to speak, even at the wrong house. Everything about the Breonna Taylor case was illegitimate. All the document was tailored. All the document was fraudulent. They doctored the search warrant, family, because they thought, okay, you had some policemen that was involved in there. You had some attorney generals that was involved in the illegal documentation of these warrants. All of this was done illegally. Then they offered Breonna Taylor's ex-boyfriend a deal. Say, hey, we'll let you go scot-free. We won't charge you with anything if you simply state that Breonna Taylor had drugs in her home at one point in time or another. Just make a written statement, okay? Sign, we want your lawyer here, affidavit, notary public, all that good stuff. If you just can say that she had drugs or she was dealing drugs or she was a drug trafficker, maybe she had an ounce of weed. You guys smoke weed, right? But now you hear the same people talking about defund the police. And see, if you really thought that Joe Biden was on your side, yeah, I'm back and forth, family. I'm apolitical on this. I'm always apolitical because this is the American government and this is how they treat Black people each and every time. When you pick a side, when it comes to the politics in this country, you lose. You lose. And that whole term, oh, if you don't vote, you don't have a voice. What are you voting for? Tell me, what are you voting for? If you're not voting for Black empowerment, if you're not voting for wiping away qualified immunity and impunity, if you're not voting for Black justice, if you're not voting for an anti-hate crime bill for Black people, for foundational Black Americans, then what the hell are you voting for? See, things don't become crystal clear until something happens to you or one of your loved ones. Then all of a sudden, here you go. Can I have a couple of you foundational Black Americans, some of you U.S. freedmen to come out here and stump the ground with me because of the injustice against my family? Oh, no. I thought that these were just isolated events. I thought things of this matter just happens to people who commit crimes, that no one's innocent under the law. But what about all the innocent Black people in jail after DNA tests and after they seen that this person lied and these person gave false claims? What happened to all those free Black people who was in jail for 20 and 30 and 40 years? Please tell me. Please tell me. So let's point out something that I think that is very interesting. This is fair use. This is Dr. Rashad Ritchie of TYT. He does some good work every now and again. I like the brother. But nonetheless, this is very important with this bullpen conversation. Please listen to this, family.
Okay. We're going to talk about the all of a sudden about face that conservatives have displayed. They are now for defunding the police, contextualized through the agency known as the FBI. Interesting. I don't want to presume what you know, believe about this newfound dynamic with the Conservative Party. So if you would, give us your sentiment and I will then opine.
Absolutely. Well, I love to see it. And I think that people are justified in distrusting the motives or intentions of the FBI raid of Donald Trump's home. Because if you know your history, you know that the Federal Bureau of Intimidation has been used and abused to crush political dissent and protect the elites since its founding. And defunding and abolishing the FBI, the case for it writes itself. You go back to the founding, World War I, when it was founded, Woodrow Wilson used it to arrest and spy on people who opposed sending troops to Europe. Fast forward a couple decades, the FBI is blackmailing and sabotaging civil rights leaders like Dr. King, Malcolm X, who was even complicit in the murder of Viola.
Family, all of a sudden, have you noticed that we're always the foundation of everyone's argument? They always coin our terms. They always flip our terms. We say defund the police. They say defund the FBI. Oh, now the Republicans, now political officials, now lobbyists and other spokespersons in these different political sets want to come out and point out that the FBI and other law enforcement agencies has been attacking Black people. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that the FBI was created to destroy Black empowerment groups. That's right, Black empowerment group. Here's a story right here, family, of how, let me put this over here. Give me a second. New terrorism guide shows FBI still classifying Black extremists as domestic terrorism threat. What Black extremist groups? What Black extremist groups are they talking about? Are they talking about the Moors? Okay, let's look at it. Family. The FBI 2020 Domestic Terrorism Reference Guide on Racially or Ethnically Motivated Violent Extremists. It says, including racism, I'm right here, including racism in American society of justified violence. The examples the FBI gives for the latter group are all Black individuals or groups. Is that right? I wonder who has more. I digress. Let me just move now. So is Black Lives Matter an extremes group that started off the death of an innocent, unarmed Black male that got killed in front of the world by 4 police officers? Or are we talking about that Black extremist group? Are we talking about them? Are we talking about the new Black Panther Party? What group are we talking about? Let's look into this. It says here that in 2017, a leaked copy of an FBI report on Black identity extremists sparked an outcry from activists, civil rights groups in Congress who criticized the Bureau for portraying disparaging groups and individuals as a single movement, even though the only common factor was those associated with the term were Black Americans. So you demonize an entire population of people. Okay. Those critics also faulted the FBI for equating isolated attacks against law enforcement with those perpetrated by white supremacists, which even the FBI said represent the majority of domestic terror attacks in recent years. Represents the majority of domestic terror attacks in recent years. Okay, so tell me what these Black extremists, what did they destroy? Who did they attack? Who did they kill? Because the only news that I've seen that the mass media, okay, the corrupted mass media have ever seen was white supremacist groups. I haven't seen no Black extremist groups. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I could be biased. But again, this is my conjecture. So argue amongst yourselves. Now, it states here, the American Civil Liberties Union, which has sued the government as part of a Freedom of Information Act, request for records on the FBI use of the term Black identity extremists and is targeting of Black activists. So those Black civil rights leaders, those Black activists that are pounding the pavement for Black justice, for Black empowerment, to show the American people that we are the most hated group simply because of our skin color, you want to demonize the extremists. Those Black activists you want to demonize, you want to label them as extremists. That's what they're doing, family. But wait, there's more.
Liuzzo, prominent civil rights activist. The Republicans used it in the 80s to spy on hundreds of organizations who opposed the regime change and involvement of the intelligence agencies in Latin America. In the past 2 decades, after the Patriot Act, it's gotten worse than ever. Unprecedented power to wiretap and spy on American citizens without warrants, to put them on no-fly lists, freeze their bank accounts without due process. And now we see it coming to a head where they're going and raiding a former president's home and spying on him during his campaign. That is waking up a lot of people, and the legitimate functions of the FBI.
Black people have already been awoke
at the state level when it comes to criminal investigations. So my thoughts, and I'm glad to see conservatives see, as Anthony Sabatini would put it, I think we need to gut this agency like a fish and give power back to the people.
All right, so let me respond to that. First of all,
I'm gonna leave it right there, family, when it comes to this particular interview. And again, that was under fair use. Now, he pointed out a lot of injustice that occurred to Black people throughout the years that law enforcement agency, and I just won't label the FBI. The FBI has always had their hands in the dismantling of Black activists and Black empowerment groups since, dating back ever since the late 50s, early 60s. So that's not necessarily new news for us, okay? This goes to show you how when two political parties can't agree on who should have power. See, we believe that we live in a country where we have fair voting. And the only reason why I say fair voting, because we know that it's very unfair. Because they play this popularity game and they show one particular candidate as racist and they show another particular candidate as less racist. So again, they always want melanated people, right? They're always essentially looking for our vote, looking for our support. They always want us to be the heel and the face of injustice in America when it comes to their political views and their political movements. But now, oh man, this is a great time in America. This is a great time in America. Because and this is why I say you can't play both sides of the coin. You can't play both sides of these political parties, because the Democrats early this year and late last year were talking about the woke crowd. Wait a minute. Who came up with the term woke? Who came up with the term woke? Again, one of our terms that we have used to tell and show other Black people what has been occurring to them, whether they've seen it or not, and to actually label it something, to now let you know, oh, now you see, now you're woke. But the Democrats has been deeming this for the past year and a half. Okay? So I guess the Republicans are woke. Or as, was it Ron DeSantis from Florida? Didn't he say, no longer woke, be awake? Oh, yeah. You guys are awake and you're woke. See, this is what occurs when you guys vote for nothing. This what occurs when you put people in office and you ask for nothing. See, all these other groups, whether it be the Native Americans, whether it be the LGBT white community, whether it be Asians, they all asked and demanded for something for their vote. But Joe Biden would have never became president without 87% of Black Americans voted for him. And guess what you did? You voted for him because you made excuses how Donald Trump was racist, and you wanted to ignore the fact that Joe Biden is as well. So now we're kind of, as a government, as a country, in a conundrum, right? We're in this tight-knit tunnel that everybody's trying to fight to see who will win the power struggle. Let me tell you what melanated people should do. Absolutely nothing. Have a great day.